Way Cool friends and family, Chef Mary here to show you how to make caramel apple cinnamon rolls. Oh my gosh. Okay, so caramel apples, super good. Cinnamon rolls, super good. Why not smush them together for the ultimate breakfast treat, or really treat anytime. Caramel, I've never said no to a great cinnamon caramel roll. So what we've got going on here today is I've got all of my ingredients laid out, my mise en place, so it's ready to go. I have a Chef Lynn here in the background to help me out. If you're making these at home and you don't have a Chef Lynn, you can grab whoever else in the kitchen is there to help you. But if you are cooking today, make sure that you have a grown-up handy to help you with anything dangerous, like using the stove or the oven for your recipes. The other thing we really want to make sure of is that we wash our hands before we cook. So make sure that you have washed your fingers. And then let's get started. So I've got a nice big glass bowl because I'm going to be making these from scratch today. You can also make this recipe in your standing mixer or with a hand mixer as well, if you have a dough hook, because we're going to be making some dough that needs to rise. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get my dry ingredients in the bowl all mixed up together. So I'm going to add in my flour, and so I'm going to put that in there. Now with this recipe, we're gonna add in our sugar to our flour mixture as well. And then we're gonna add in our salt. And then I've got a package of yeast here that I'm also gonna use. I'm gonna grab my scissors and snip off the edge of that. And I'm gonna add in our whole package of yeast and sprinkle that so it goes evenly on top. Get that out of the way. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my trusty wooden spoon here and I'm gonna stir up these ingredients and so they're mixed up, so that there's a little bit of everything in everything ready to go. And then I'm gonna do something called the well method. And so if you're making dough by hand, it's helpful to dig a little well inside of your bowl that your wet ingredients are gonna hang out in. And what that really does is it helps you incorporate and make the dough a little bit easier by hand if you can work from the center and then add the dry stuff into the bowl. And so I've just got a bowl inside of my bowl. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add my egg into that mixture and then also my melted butter and milk. And so I took and I microwaved the butter and the milk together for 20 seconds at a time, stirring in between each time, just until the butter has melted. My trick is I actually like when I see like just like a little cube of butter, I know that it's hot enough to melt anyway, and so then I take it out at that time. And the reason I do and just kind of stir it is, as you can see, this is steaming a little bit. It's hot. If this milk is too hot, it can actually kill the yeast and not allow the yeast to do what it needs to do and rise. And so you want to make sure that it is warm and your butter is melted. And the best way to do that is to just stick your finger in it and test it. That's why we have clean hands as chefs. And so I'm going to take it and I'm going to stick it in. Yes, is it warm? Absolutely. Is it like burning hot where you stick it in and you're like, oh, I can't touch that? No, it is not. And so I'm gonna take and I'm gonna add that. Oh, my well fell in here, so I'm gonna dig my well back out and pour that right in the middle. Then I'm gonna take to that mixture, stir it up here a little bit. I'm gonna add an egg in too. So I'm gonna take and I'm gonna add my egg and I'm gonna crack it into this little cracking bowl to make sure that there are no shells in there. No shells? All right. And I'm gonna add that into this. Now the other cool thing with a wooden spoon and why I think it's so handy is because when it comes to incorporating and making dough, I like to use the end of the wooden spoon instead of the spoon part of the wooden spoon. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to incorporate the flour mixture into the well until it comes together and gathers around my spoon a little bit at a time. It can also help if you just stir your bowl, spin your bowl while you're stirring your spoon here. And this is gonna make a globby, sticky dough in the middle of my bowl. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, once I get it kind of where I can't stir it anymore, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna start using my hands to incorporate it. So this is kind of where it comes up and blobs around my wooden spoon. I'm gonna take and just clean that off. And then I'm gonna take and I'm gonna use my fingers and I'm gonna go on the outside of the bowl and I'm gonna turn it and cover that center part with flour, press it down, and then start folding it over on top of itself, kind of like you're folding and you're closing a little book and pressing that flat. And as you're pressing it, you're incorporating more of the flour from the bottom of the bowl in addition to adding the flour to the top of the bowl. And if your hands are floured enough, then your hands actually don't get too dirty. If your hands are not floured enough, you get this little shaggy dough situation. And so keeping your hands floured is a really, really good way to prevent that. So I'm gonna take and I'm just gonna knead, I'm gonna keep kneading this dough. We've got our Way Cool hotline going off in the background here. And I'm gonna knead it until it comes together. Now this dough and most cinnamon roll dough is actually kind of a sticky dough. And so as I'm kneading it, I'm making sure to turn it and incorporate it all together. Now the difference between making this with a stand mixer and making it by hand is that when you're making it by hand, you may end up with a little extra flour in the bowl that we're just not gonna use. I don't want my dough to get really dry and shaggy, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually take, and when it gets to that point, I'll show you so that you can kind of see what that looks like. Like it's just not gonna take and pick up any more of this extra flour, and so I'm not gonna fight with the dough. I'm gonna let it tell me when the dough is ready. Where if you are using a stand mixer to mix your dough, it's a little bit easier to incorporate all of the flour in because the dough hook is doing all of the work for you. And as you see, as I'm kneading, I'm pushing the dough away from myself and then rotating it as I go. I'm kind of rocking the dough into shape. I'm not pounding on the dough and jumping on the dough. You do want to be gentle with it, although we are creating the structure of the dough as we're kneading it, which is important. We don't want to just like be tough on the dough because then the dough will be tough. All right, so I'm at that stage that I was talking about. I'm gonna remove my dough and move it to the counter to knead it just a little bit more. And I wanted to show you in the bowl here, I've got these kind of flaky, shaggy pieces that are just not going to incorporate into my dough by mixing it by hand. And so I've got probably about 1/4 of a cup of flour here that I am just gonna ditch because I'm not gonna need that, okay? I'm just not gonna use that in the dough at all. So I'm gonna get rid of that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take it on my cutting board or on a lightly floured surface. I'm just gonna continue to knead the dough until it is smooth and elastic. And basically what that means is that it's gonna feel kind of like a rubber stress ball or like a firm memory foam pillow or mattress. And so when you press on it, you're gonna see the indentation, but it's slowly gonna come back. And we're really close to that right now. And as far as being smooth, you really just don't want the dough to be lumpy, and that's gonna tell you that you've incorporated all the ingredients in together as you're rolling it. All right, can you over knead dough? Yes. Can you recover from that? Yes. If you are kneading your dough and you're just kneading and kneading and kneading, or you're using a stand mixer and it's like a hard rubber bouncy ball, let the dough just needs to rest longer so that those gluten strands can relax and your dough can be soft enough to roll out. Then what I've got here is a clean glass bowl, and I'm just gonna take, you can use vegetable oil. I'm gonna break out my non-stick spray here so that as the dough rises up, there's no friction on the bowl so that it can double very, very easily. I'm gonna place my dough inside of here. I like to give it a little twirl for good luck, and then I'm gonna cover it with a little bit of plastic wrap and allow it to double in size. You wanna put it into like a warm place, and so some good places in the kitchen to put this are if you have a dishwasher that's running, do your dishes at the same time, because the humidity created by your dishwasher will actually help the dough rise faster, which is kind of a cool kitchen trick. If you have a gas burner stove, you can kind of set it near your stove or oven, and sometimes that allows the heat to go to. Your oven should be preheating at 350, and so if you set it on top on your stove, the heat that comes off of the oven will help that rise faster too. All right, we're gonna wrap it up, and we're gonna wrap up this video too, because this is part one. Part two, we're gonna come back after our dough is risen, and we're gonna show you guys how to roll out and create your actual cinnamon rolls. All right, see you then.